China's military aggression and dominance in the Indo-Pacific region has brought together US, Japan and the Philippines. White House hosted the first trilateral meeting between the leaders of these nations. President Joe Biden gathered Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida for a first-of-its-kind White House summit in a bid to show that they are in lockstep about countering China's military assertiveness. During opening remarks, the US President declared the trilateral summit with Japan and the Philippines as a new era of partnership. Biden said he was committed to deepening maritime and security ties with the two allies, further adding that Washington's support for Manila and Tokyo is ironclad, as he assured his allies worried about increasingly assertive Chinese actions in the disputed waters.
President, Mr. Prime Minister, today we mark a historic moment, the first ever leaders summit between the United States, Japan, and the Philippines. And it's truly an honor to have you both here as we begin this new era of partnership. The United States defense commitments to Japan and to the Philippines are ironclad. They're ironclad.
The long simmering tensions between China and its neighbors took the center stage. According to the White House, the leaders have agreed to step up military exercises, including plans for Philippines and Japanese Coast Guard members to patrol aboard a US Coast Guard vessel in the Indo-Pacific. The allies also plan to conduct more training exercises at sea.
Japan, the US, and the Philippines are maritime nations connected by the Pacific Ocean and are natural partners. We share fundamental values and principles and have supported regional economic development. In order to secure peace and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific, I hope to reaffirm our intention to further strengthen trilateral cooperation and to present the specific way forward through today's meeting.
Maritime security topped the summit agenda following a series of incidents, including Chinese Coast Guard ships firing water cannons last month at a civilian Filipino boat. And this comes as China claims almost the entire South China Sea, including the maritime economic zones of neighboring nations. The second Thomas Shoal is within the Philippines' 320-kilometer exclusive economic zone. Meanwhile, during the trilateral, Biden also announced that the three nations are launching a new economic corridor in the Philippines as part of the G7 Partnership for Global Infrastructure Investment. According to the American president, the economic corridor will help develop clean energy, port, agriculture, and other projects in the country. All right, to discuss this further, we're being joined by Voice of America correspondent Chris Casqueo, joining us live from the White House. Chris, always a pleasure speaking with you. It's a new era of partnership between the three nations. Talk to us about your key takeaways from the summit.
Good evening from Washington, D.C., Siobhan. Let's start with the Philippines, which is a key partner of the U.S. defense strategy in the region. Even though there are no permanently stationed U.S. troops there, the U.S. and the Philippines have a mutual defense treaty that dates back to 1951, so post-World War II. And in 2023, last year, they agreed upon 4 additional sites under the 2014 Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, known as EDCA, to provide additional staging capacity for U.S. military, where U.S. troops rotate their presence no more than 10,000 at a time. Now, the Philippines also needs to retrofit its military assets, so the U.S. is helping with those upgrades. The U.S. Senate has proposed $2.5 billion in grants over 5 years to help Manila purchase weapons from Washington. Now, on to Japan and its role in this partnership. It has 50,000 U.S. troops stationed in its country, but command and control for those troops is located in Hawaii. The U.S. and Japan committed on Wednesday during their bilateral meeting between Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and President Joe Biden to better coordinate their military command and control with some reforms. Now, of course, this is all to discourage China's so-called gray zone tactics in the South China Sea, which the Philippines calls the West Philippine Sea. Tactics like water cannons and aiming military-grade lasers at vessels.
Yes. Chris, now Biden also announced that the three nations are launching a new economic corridor in the Philippines. Now, what will that facilitate, if you can share more details on that front?
Right. You touched on that briefly. Now, on the economic front, the countries have unveiled what is called the PGI Luzon corridor, and this would be the first ever partnership for global investment in the Indo-Pacific, which will connect Subic Bay, Clark, Manila, and Batangas in the Philippines to accelerate coordinated investments in high-impact infrastructure products, including ports, rail, clean energy infrastructure, supply chains, and other forms of connectivity in the Philippines. Now, some of those locations are significant. Clark and Subic Bay were once home to U.S. bases there, which ended up closing about 20 to 30 years ago.
All right, Chris, we'll let you go for now. That was Voice of America correspondent Chris Casquio joining us from Washington.